Welcome to the Mentors and Moguls podcast, where mentors and moguls alike share their strategies for success and secret formulas for turning their passion into a dream career. I'm Heather Stone, motivational speaker and former fintech executive turned nine-figure entrepreneur, and I'm on a mission to help you tap into your true potential and create the life of your dreams. Today, we're in New York. We're joined by Carolyn Spector. She is the president of Juhi, LLC, which focuses on Eastern medicine and all things Eastern medicine. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
We have a lot to talk about today. Today, we're talking about passion and process, and there's so many things I want to cover with you. So let's dive right in and talk a little bit about you, take you back to when you first discovered your passion. I know that you've done a few things in your career, but let's start. What did you do out of college? Where did you go to college, and what was your interest? I know you had an interest that took you to college, and what types of...
Exactly. So growing up, I was fascinated with criminal justice matters. My mom said at age 3, if I saw a police car, I wanted to follow it. I was always so excited by it, and I'm not really sure what sparked that interest. So criminal justice, law enforcement was something that I was always very interested in. I went to Connecticut College, and I had the opportunity to do a lot of internships. I worked in the prison, I worked at the DA's office, I worked in the public defender's office, really to make sure that this was a pursuit that I wanted to, follow. And sure enough, I did. So I was lucky enough to be accepted to BU Law School, went directly from college to law school, and I focused on criminal law in law school. I did moot court, took a lot of the criminal procedure classes, and was fortunate enough to get a job at the Middlesex DA's office in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is one of the premier offices in the country, and I was really excited to be there. So that's that piece of it.
Wow. So in college, did you ever have doubt? Did you ever have struggles? Did you ever have obstacles that were in your way, or was it smooth sailing for you?
Well, the beginning of college was a little bit challenging because I was taking all kinds of courses that I really didn't have any interest in, but we had to take. I had to take economics and philosophy and things that I didn't really excel at. I was used to being a very good student, so it was a little bit challenging at first, but once I got into my sophomore year and I was able to really focus on the things that I wanted to study, I became much more comfortable and confident. And I had a great experience in college. I was very blessed. So the obstacles came later.
Right. Well, take us through that. So now you're working in Boston. You're working for an organization that you were very excited about. What was that like? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
So working at the DA's office was really exciting. It was like Hill Street Blues at the time. You're in the courthouse every morning, and there's the police officers and the defendants and all the lawyers. And it is really, I'm a people person, so it was really exciting, and I learned to hone my skills. I had to do jury trials, which terrified me at first. Right. I was actually very shy when I started at the DA's office, and learning the skills that I needed to excel as an assistant district attorney really brought out my personality. My mom didn't necessarily like it because I found my voice, but it really changed who I was, and it was a very exciting time. I was able to be very instrumental in creating the first ever sexual assault and domestic violence unit in a DA's office. Oh. This was in the mid-'80s, not to date myself, but there wasn't a lot of knowledge about it at the time. So I was really happy to create this unit, and I also started teaching at the same time at Northeastern University. I taught at the Graduate School of Criminal Justice because there was nothing about domestic violence out there, and I wanted to be able to share, the information and educate people about what that was all about.
So that's an interesting turn that you took. So what got you interested in that specific? Was there something that happened or something that you witnessed?
Yeah, that's really an excellent question, because this is where my passion started, actually. So I was crazy about law enforcement, but then I started identifying with the survivors of the crime. So I would have women come who were severely beaten by their partners, and then they would either recant or they wouldn't show up, or there was always a problem with the case. And I was really trying to understand, what is this dynamic? It doesn't really make any sense. And I would see these babies who were living in these violent homes, and I really started to become much more empathetic to the victims of the crime than caring about putting the bad guys in jail. So that was the turn for me, where I really found my passion. And it was just about making a difference in the lives of somebody else.
So to create that unit, Was that easy? Was it difficult? Did you have a female mentor helping you? Did it matter? What was that like?
Yeah, there were some amazing women at the DA's office at the time, many of whom have gone on to be the attorney generals and sheriffs and really important positions in Massachusetts. But Scott Harshbarger, who was the DA at the time, was an amazing man, very supportive, and he gave us all the resources really that we needed to do it. It wasn't a challenge at all. I mean, it was a cause that he felt very strongly about, and he provided the resources we needed to create the unit. So.
Was that very rewarding once you got the entire unit put together, and as you were building that, what did that feel like to you to take a thought? You went from empathy to I need to take action, and then you started to create something. Was it easy to get people to join in? And then what was it like when you finally created it? What did that feel like?
Well, it's still an incredible challenge because people don't understand the dynamic of domestic violence. People are constantly blaming the victim, and it's very challenging and it's very frustrating to me because I understand what it's all about. And, just watching those Kavanaugh hearings, for example. Yes. When I watched Judge Kavanaugh testify and treat the women the way he did in that hearing, it brought me back to those days of dealing with these abusers because that's the typical way that these men behave. And so it's just very frustrating because society does not understand what the dynamic of violence is all about. Especially in privileged families. They expect it to be in low-income, underserved families, and it happens equally in all types of families. So it was very frustrating to me to not get the kind of public acceptance and response that I wanted. But what was gratifying was the students that I taught. I taught a lot of basketball players and football players because Northeastern was a big sports school. Sure. And it opened their eyes. And this was at the time of the O.J. Simpson trial. So I created a moot court class based on that trial where they had to play the various actors in that trial. And so it was a perfect timing to get people interested in the subject matter. So the DA's office was frustrating, but the teaching experience was really rewarding.
Right. Well, so that was really a pivotal time in our history for that whole conversation, which was kind of taboo before and people didn't talk about.
Exactly.
So just in case there is someone listening of any age that is watching this, male or female, can you kind of dive into your past self and say, what are some of the signs and what can you do about it and what's out there for someone to get help?
Of course. So domestic violence is all about power and control. It's where one partner tries to exert his or her influence over the other partner. And it happens in every kind of relationship. So the victim can be male, female, transgender, it's everywhere and it's in every relationship. There's a wonderful organization that I actually worked for when I go through a little bit more with you called Safe Horizon. They have an amazing hotline and tremendous support for people who are going through it. But my advice is don't stay if you can possibly get out. I always would say every domestic violence relationship is a homicide waiting to happen. It's the most difficult and challenging call for a police officer to take. They're terrified every time they go to a domestic violence call because the perpetrators usually have a weapon. And it's a terrible, terrifying situation. And there is help out there, and the problem is the perpetrator diminishes the victim's self-esteem. So they feel that no one would ever want them again. They have no, self-worth anymore. So, we need to build that up in the victims and make them feel that they are important and that they deserve to be happy and healthy.
Right. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but on that same track, something that I have heard and learned that the victim, whatever their gender is, always thinks, oh, well, it won't happen again, or they're going to change. I can change them. It's going to get better. They said they were sorry. And it's a sad, probably, loop that happens. Is that what you see?
That's exactly part of the cycle of violence. It diminishes as the relationship goes on because the perpetrator realizes that this victim will stay no matter what. But particularly at the beginning, there'll be a beating. The husband or partner comes home with flowers and apologizes, and there's this honeymoon phase, as they call it, and then the cycle just keeps continuing and perpetuating itself.
So if you know of someone or someone watching knows of someone, has a friend, a sister, a cousin, or whoever that is struggling with this, and you recognize the pattern, what's the best advice that I could give someone to try and, I don't walk in their shoes, so why would they listen to me? What's the best advice that you can give someone to prod them into taking a step back and taking a step out?
The most important thing is that you don't judge the person and that they know that you're there for them. If you have any questions, if you need any help, come up with a code so someone could text you a word that they felt they were safe. It's happened to me many times where I see a woman with a bruised eye.
Right.
And I'll just go up and I say, that looks painful. Are you okay? You don't want to put words in their mouth or assume anything.
Right.
But by starting the conversation that way, you're showing that you care, you have empathy, and you want to help. Sometimes they'll talk, sometimes they won't. It's a very much of a cultural thing, too. So.
Interesting. Well, that's really good work, important work that you did. So thank you for your contribution there.
Of course.
So you were teaching,
yes,
and you were in Boston in that capacity.
Yes.
So walk me through what happened next in your career.
So I met a man who I did not ultimately marry, but he lived in New York, and so I was trying to find a way to move to New York and do something here where I could be professional. So I actually applied to get an LLM at NYU, which is an advanced law degree. It's traditionally a taxation degree. That's what it was known for. But it's a 4th year specialization. And NYU allows you to create your own program. So I created an LLM in criminal and constitutional law. So that brought me to New York, and I was very happy. The fellow and I did not last throughout that year, but it's okay. I was in New York, and I fell in love with New York City. I was from a suburb of Boston, and now the world was open to me. I loved the diversity and the inclusion and all the wonderful things that New York offers, and decided I wanted to make this my home. So I had to recreate myself now for the first recreation and figure out what to do. So I mentioned Safe Horizon.
Right.
So they are the nation's largest provider to victims of crime, particularly sexual assault and domestic violence. So they were looking for someone to help run the criminal justice division, which meant they needed, I was the deputy director of the division. So I managed every DA's office in the 5 boroughs, had our staff who would help the victims of the crime when they were coming to report the case. They had community offices in every borough, and they also had police precincts. In every police precinct, there would be an advocate. So they would help the victims when they would want to report the crime. So there were over 300 people in my particular unit. I had a budget of about $11 million that I managed every year. And so I was more of an administrator then.
Right.
And it was, in a way, welcoming to me because I had dealt so frequently with the victims of the crime and these poor children. So it was nice to sort of take a step back because I'm the kind of person who takes everything home with me and would cry myself to sleep at night over things that I had seen. So, So
it was a different perspective.
Yes.
But didn't you feel that it was necessary that you went through, you walked the walk,
Yes.
you saw it firsthand,
Yes.
so then you could speak to it and
Absolutely.
you could navigate and teach others in a team.
Yes.
That must be difficult. I don't know how you did that. That must have been very difficult. You've got to have a thick skin for that and a strong stomach and but a heart of gold to handle that.
I don't know about the thick skin. That's still something I'm working on. On the outside, I can show that I do, but I really don't. But, I was working on becoming an expert in domestic violence. I was able to testify at the time in court on the issue of domestic violence. It was something very near and dear to my heart. And I remember one day my mom asked me, why are you so passionate about this issue? Is there something that happened that you never told me?
Right.
And I said, no, Mom, I promise nothing ever happened to me. But when you see it day in and day out and you see what's happening to these poor children, you have to care, so that's...
So that was your calling. You really felt drawn from a young age. You really felt drawn to it. So a lot of things that people say, they say, there was a pattern that I recognized in my life. So I heard from a very wise person, what did you think about? What did you want to be when you were 12? And that's probably something in the world that you are doing today. So you thought about that when you were 12, helping people and the police and all of that. So you wanted to be in that world. You just felt compelled to be in that world?
Right, yeah. And I always like to give back. I was from a family where we would volunteer, on Thanksgiving and the holidays. And, we were very fortunate. And my mom always taught me, you have to give to others. There's a very important principle in the Jewish tradition, which is called tzedakah, which is giving back. It's about charity. And my father was very involved in charities in Boston and, just the way I was raised. So
you must live a very fulfilling life because you're giving back so much every day.
Yeah. I've had a lot of challenges, which we'll talk about, but that's what gets me through all the obstacles and the hard times in my life is just knowing that I can continue to make a difference in someone's life.
That's important.
And it's selfish. You feel good when you help somebody.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
So.
Good for you for recognizing it and acting on it, because a lot of people say, I should tomorrow. So you actually did, and you are doing it.
No, I feel blessed to be in a position to do it. So.
Nice. So
Continue on. Where did you go?
So while I was at Safe Horizon, I was asked to create an event in New York City to raise awareness about domestic violence. And again, this was in 1989. So walks were just becoming exciting, the 5K, 10K walk runs. So I approached 3 different companies, and I had a wonderful experience, and it never happened again, where you'd go to 3 companies and you'd get 3 checks.
That's amazing.
It was unheard of.
Right.
So I raised a ton of money, and we created this beautiful walk downtown in Battery Park. We thought 500 people would come. 5,000 people showed up.
Oh my gosh.
All, victims of domestic violence. They're advocates, from about 60 different organizations, tri-statewide. And so because of the success of it, I said, you know what, maybe I should pursue this. So with the blessing of Safe Horizon, myself and other women, like-minded women, created our own nonprofit. And it was called Walk to End Domestic Violence. Because I have the legal background, I was able to do the 501c3 paperwork.
Right.
And we created this awesome organization. And we had a good run only for a few years because, as you know, on September 11th, 2001, a devastating terror attack happened and we were downtown. So we couldn't do the event. Our event was in October. So we had a good 2-year run, but then everything had to stop.
Wow.
So again, now I'm faced with figuring out what to do next. So, but I was very fortunate at that time. I was engaged to my fiance. And because of 9/11, we wanted to get out of the city. We decided that we would move to Long Island. And again, I'm in Long Island now trying to figure out what am I going to do. Right. So I was actually at a nail salon one day and I heard someone talking about this group of plastic surgeons that wanted to start a foundation. So being the shy person that I am, I went over to her and I introduced myself and I said, I heard you talking about that. This is what I do. I'm really good at starting nonprofits. I just did one. So she introduced me. I went through a lengthy interview process and I started an organization for these group of surgeons. It was called Mission Restore. And the goal was to train surgeons in war-torn countries to be proficient in reconstructive surgery. So instead of the doctors always traveling to the site, we were going to train the doctors there so they could help their own people. So that's what really started my interest in pediatric healthcare in the nonprofit setting, which I then did for 20 years.
So I really want to point out to the viewers right now that, did you hear that she said, I just asked? Most people don't have the gumption or the courage to go in and just ask. But that led to a phenomenal part of your career. And again, you're giving back. You've got this wonderful through line of giving back to everyone. So keep going. I love this.
So I was the executive director of Mission Restore for probably 8 years or so. We trained doctors in Afghanistan and Iraq and in Haiti. I never traveled there because I then was lucky enough to get pregnant and have a baby. My daughter's now 14, so I didn't want to put myself in that position, but our doctors traveled all over the world. And what was really special during that time is that there were certain children who were not able to be treated abroad, so we would bring the families to New York for life-saving surgery. So the way my house was set up, I had a basement level that went outside that had bedrooms and a living room and a kitchen. So we would house many families in our house. So from the age of 2, my daughter was surrounded by children from all over the world who needed life-saving surgery. And so she was able to experience, and it was amazing. We had a little boy from Burkina Faso in West Africa who came dying from heart failure. He was 2. And I remember Lexi, she would have a bowl of fruit and this little boy would grab it. And, she would start to cry and I'd explain, look, at home, this boy doesn't have any food, and so she really learned to understand what life is about. And I remember one case too, we had a little girl come from Gaza, which was quite challenging for me at the beginning because I'm a big Zionist. And she was injured because the Israelis were invading her village and she was burned because she was so afraid from the gunfire by the water and where they would use to cook. So I had this totally torn relationship with this case, and the mom and the little girl stayed at my house, the mom in the full burqa, and my very Jewish mother fell in love with this woman, and she would cook for them. I mean, if women could solve the world's problems just by getting together, the world would be a much better place. So, the experience of having these families from all over the world in my house was incredible. So it was an amazing experience for me working with Mission Restore. I loved it. And then I started to get the itch to go back to New York. I had it in Long Island, and my daughter was now 7, and she wasn't afraid of the city anymore, and she wanted. So we moved back to back from Long Island back to New York. And again, okay, what am I now going to do with myself? So I now had established myself, though, as, I don't want to say expert, but very well versed in pediatric healthcare in the nonprofit world. So there was an organization at NYU it was called National Foundation for Facial Reconstruction at the time, and they funded the craniofacial program at NYU, and they were looking for an executive director, and fortunately I was able to get that position. So that was in 2012.
Wow. So every single step that you had was a clear stepping stone looking back, and it was preparing. Yes. And you didn't know where you were going next.
No clue.
But you just, I don't know, through osmosis or the universe just brought you the next thing. When you were ready, then it was time to move on to the next thing.
Yes.
And look at all these amazing organizations that you've helped develop, all of the people. Have you ever stopped to count how many people you've helped with your organizations? I know it's you and other people, but have you ever stopped to really tally up
I don't think so,
change?
But there's certain people that are still in my life. You know, there's this mom from Haiti, her baby had a heart problem. And I just stay in touch with all these people. So I know there's a handful of people whose lives I know I changed forever and who are eternally grateful to me. And I feel so blessed that I could do that. But there's probably between all of my careers, there's thousands of people who I was fortunately able to help. So
wow. So now we're talking about you leaving Mission Restore and going on to My Face at NYU.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So in 2012, I was fortunate enough to be hired as the executive director. It was called the National Foundation for Facial Reconstruction, and the board of directors was very giving with me and was enabling me to completely rebrand the organization. So we came up with a new name, which was My Face, new website. We just completely rebranded everything about it. We created a lot of new programs. So we provided services to children who had craniofacial conditions.
Okay.
At NYU, there was what was called the Institute of Reconstructive Plastic Surgery, and it was a world-renowned institute for children with craniofacial conditions. Unfortunately, in 2013, my husband was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a very aggressive type of brain cancer, the same type of cancer that Senator McCain and Senator Kennedy had. And they gave him a year to live. I was fortunate that I was at NYU because I was able to get him the best possible care. And he fortunately lived for 3 years, but it was 3 very challenging years. I was his primary caretaker. The first 2 years was mostly about clinical trials and treatment, and I was able to work and do what I needed to do. The third year, when his tumor came back, it was devastating. The decline was steady and brutal, and I was trying to work and raise, at the time she was 12 years old. So it was very challenging, but I was lucky that I was at a position where I could do both things. But then it got to a point where I needed to be home with him. We knew the time was coming and I needed to be home. So again, I had to figure out a new plan because he wasn't able to work from the time that he was diagnosed. So I became the sole supporter of our family. And so I needed to figure out a plan. So I started talking to people in my network, and I had 3 or 4 people come say, you know, I don't have a full-time position for you, but I have some work that I would love for you to do with me. Fortunately, to me, integrity is the most important thing in the world, and people found that I had that, and they were willing to work with me. So instead of choosing between these organizations, I said, you know what, why don't I just start my own consultant business and take them all on? So I was able to work at home, be there with my husband, help get Lexi through what we needed to get through, and work and raise money. So it was wonderful. It worked out very, very well. I did that for 1.5 years, and then my husband passed away, and I took a few months off to just grieve and do what I needed to do. Then, unexpectedly, I lost my mother. So with my husband, I was able to grieve and do what I needed to do.
Right.
With my mom, it was just the extra shot that I just couldn't take, and I literally just shut down. I was dizzy for 3 months. I didn't know what to do with myself. I literally ended up in July in the emergency room at NYU thinking I was having a heart attack.
Oh boy.
The stress did such a number on me. Thank God my heart is fine.
Right.
But I was at the bottom of the bottom, and I didn't know what to do for myself. My daughter was away for the summer, so I was by myself, and I went home and I was crying in my living room, and I just thought, what can I possibly do to make myself better? Because I need to be here for my child. I lost my dad at 57, and so now I'm 57 years old, and I'm thinking, this can't be. Like, I need to figure out a plan for me. And so I think my husband said to me, try acupuncture, because it's nothing that I ever would have thought of, that I would have considered. I didn't understand or believe in Eastern medicine, but it went into my head. So I called a dear friend of mine who knows everybody in New York City, and I said, I want to try acupuncture. Who do I go see? And she said, my friend Juhi just opened a center on the East Side. She's brilliant. She's a healer. You need to go see her. So she introduced us. I made an appointment. I went in at the end of July, and within one treatment, the dizziness went away. It was debilitating dizziness for 3 months.
One treatment, and it went away.
And the dizziness went away. But she's a healer, and she and I bonded immediately, and I was in tears telling her, I'm 57 years old, I feel like my life's over, I need to recreate myself, I don't know what to do. She said, don't worry, I'm going to take care of you. We're going to teach you to meditate, we're going to teach you acupuncture, we're going to put you on an Ayurvedic diet, I'm going to take care of you. And I believed her. And over the summer, I learned to meditate, I started on an Ayurvedic diet, and I got acupuncture once a week. And at the end of the summer, she was putting the needles in one day in me, and she said, by the way, I've just formed my LLC, Juhi LLC, and I need a president of my company. Do you know anyone who I can interview? And I didn't think of me because what do I know about being a corporate leader? I said, tell me the job requirements and I'll see who I know.
Right.
And she listed everything that I do on a daily basis for my nonprofit work. So she came back in after me sitting for an hour with the needles, and I said, you know what? I said, maybe you should think about me. And she got all excited, and I said, no, you and I cannot do this. I said, you don't know anything about me. I said, let me send my resume to your board president, and we'll figure it out. Fast forward 6 weeks, 6 interviews later, I was hired as the president of Juhi LLC.
So do you believe in intuition? Do you believe in
100%.
Women's intuition?
100%.
How do you use that in your daily life?
So for a long time, I didn't listen to my instincts, and I learned to do so. And the way I really learned to do so was through my husband. I never relied on anyone my entire life for anything. And my husband was very wise, and it took about 2 years into our marriage, but I realized he knew what he was talking about, and I let go, and I trusted him, and then I learned to trust myself. So it was a process. I was in my 40s when I really learned to listen to my own intuition.
Wow.
And women don't.
No. They don't. So what advice would you give to a woman of any age that's listening to you and your story? Because you've got so many lessons in your story.
I do.
You've reinvented yourself. You've walked the path that you just blindly walked the path, but things where the universe brought things into your life. So you're living proof that it can happen. But what would you say to a woman who says, I'm not her. I don't have women's intuition. I don't have intuition, period, even if it's a male. What would you say to that?
Everybody has intuition, and you need to dig deep in your soul. I'm a very positive person, but I was faced with such diversity. Like, I thought you were going to have to put me literally in a mental institution for a while. I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. I mean, it was so bad. So if I can overcome what I overcame, anybody can. Literally, like, I went through hell on earth, and I survived. So I learned that I can do whatever I set my mind to. You have to get through what you have to get through. Sometimes the greatest rewards come from the worst tragedies. But as you're going through the tragedy, what got me through it was looking at the good things, because good things always come from bad things. You can't just look at the bad. You have to focus on what positives are coming out from it. And I would, even when my husband was sick, I always tried to find something good for my daughter to see from it that enabled her to move forward. So you have it in you. You just have to summon it. You just have to look deep in your soul and try meditating. I'm telling you, it's brilliant.
I was going to ask you, does meditation now help you bring that intuition, that gut feeling, where do I take my next step, into focus faster? And how hard was it for you to learn meditation? Because most of your life, I'd say, first half of your life, meditation was not part of your narrative.
I would always say, I can't do yoga, I can't meditate, I just can't. That was my mantra. I said, I can't do it. But I got to the point where I had no future. Like, I was at the bottom of the bottom, so I needed to trust in somebody, and she told me I could do it, and I trusted her. She's a healer. She's incredible. So when she told me, I'm going to teach you to meditate, I just opened my mind. Like, I didn't have any other options. I've always had other options. I didn't at this point. So what do I have to lose? So I tried it, and I do it every night now. Can't do it in the morning because it's just too much to do. But every night before I go to sleep, I sleep like a baby now. And whenever I get stressed, which is very little now, I go right back there, and I'm able to handle things that I never could do before.
That's amazing.
I used to get that pit in my stomach when something would upset me.
Oh, yes.
It's like I found my homeostasis, my equilibrium. I'm calm now.
I like that. You're definitely calm. I'm spending time with you on and off camera. You're definitely calm. So I can feel you're kind of unshakable right now.
I'm enthusiastic, but I'm calm.
But you're calm.
Yeah.
You're definitely calm. So you're teaching a great lesson to your daughter because she's watched you go from the highs to the lows to back to the highs again and be steady. Does she notice it? Does she know what meditation is? Does she understand the transformation?
So she's terrified of needles, but when she saw what Juhi did for me, she's like, I want to try it, Mom.
Oh.
Because I took her to an art therapist, I took her to traditional therapy, and nothing worked for her. But Juhi works for her. She loves her, she'll speak to her, she doesn't really meditate yet, I think she's still a little too young, but she does the acupuncture. We started using CBD oil products.
Oh, tell us about that.
Life-changing.
Okay, so what do you use that for? I'm just getting into that world of learning.
Stress, anxiety.
Really?
It can be used for a whole myriad of actual physical symptoms.
Okay.
But for Lexi, I do it for stress and anxiety. You know, she's in 9th grade.
Right.
And she's like, Mom, can I please have some CBD oil? Calms her right down.
Does it? That's interesting.
It's brilliant. So we're creating a whole line at Juhi LLC of customized CBD products.
Now, CBD for the viewers, my understanding is CBD oil does not have any THC, so the element that gets you high from marijuana, it doesn't get you high. So it's totally safe. It's legal. And then the oil, what do you do with it? Do you rub it on your skin? Do you put it on your tongue? What do you do with the oil?
There's different methods. So there's the tincture, which is you put under your tongue. You do it for about a minute, and then you swallow it. We have transdermal patches, which you just put on your arm or your leg. There's creams, there's balms, there's pills. It comes in many
all kinds of forms. And is it addictive? Is it safe for your daughter? Obviously, it must be safe.
No addictive factor to it whatsoever. Yeah, I would never give anything to my daughter if I had any questions about it. I mean, I did a lot of research on it. We went to the best manufacturers. You know, we didn't want to mess around. We wanted to go right to the top and make sure we did it properly.
Interesting. So I have to believe that that's a natural product that probably doesn't have any harmful side effects. Whereas if these days, you know, Big Pharma is so big on pushing pretty much toxic chemicals for you to ingest into your body and giving a toxic chemical to a child, which I'm not an expert, but I know that a lot of those have some wild side effects.
Well, I saw with my husband, the chemo gave him terrible neuropathy. He couldn't walk. And that's what I'm really learning. I knew nothing about Eastern medicine, but what's interesting is Western medicine is very one size fits all. You have glioblastoma, this is what you do, 6 weeks of radiation and chemo. In the Eastern medicine, we're doing a highly personalized approach. So we're taking people and understanding their constitution. There's a test you can take where we understand exactly what your digestive system is good and not good. You know, there's an athlete who eats spinach all day long. When they did the testing on him, spinach isn't good for him. So you can't just, because there's a healthy food, doesn't mean it's healthy for you. So what we do is a highly personalized approach of people to understand what works best for you. So that's what I'm learning about Eastern medicine. So
there's a lot to be learned with Eastern medicine.
A lot to be learned, yeah.
So now the Juhi, at Juhi LLC, so I know they're here in New York. I actually have called and made my first appointment because I'm curious myself about that, and I love learning. So she must feel, the woman that started this, she must feel that you were an answer to her prayers as well, right? So you weren't just brought together by dumb luck.
No. And we say that to each other, like, we don't know who's more grateful that we found each other, because she had been struggling on her own personal journey, and she needed me and I needed her. Like, she healed me, and then I'm now giving her what she needs.
That's a really powerful lesson. So again, you've got a need. You're listening, you have intention out there, you don't know where to step next, so don't lose faith if you don't know where to step next, because the answers will come if you're truly seeking.
You just have to go with it. You really do. You can't fight it, and you have to be open. I always wasn't open. It's something that I learned as I got older.
When I went to school, they always used to say, can't means I won't. And I know things that I say I can't do, and I know it really means, I really don't even want to try, so don't go there. So good for you. Good for you. So what's next for you right now? You're into this new position. I'm fascinated about the CBD oil. What else are you doing there? What else does the center have to offer?
So Juhi LLC has 3 pillars. We have the center, we have the product line, and we have the technology piece, where we're going to have an app where people who can't come to New York City, who want to benefit from Juhi's healing treatments can go online and for a much less costly
Really?
appointment, have a telecommunication with her. And as you know, technology is taking over everything. So
Sure.
this way she can share her wisdom with everybody else. But a couple of cool things that we're doing. We're going to be doing a wellness suite for the Oscars. So we're going to be going to LA in February.
Oh, wow.
For the week leading up to the Oscars. We're partnering with some other really phenomenal providers in the city. And we're going to be inviting all the celebrities to come. What she does is facial rejuvenation in addition to acupuncture. So you get basically a facelift with acupuncture needles. You don't need Botox. You don't need any kind of bad
no artificial fillers, nothing.
No artificial fillers. Just with these needles, she can literally transform.
All right. Well, maybe I'm going to go tonight. Maybe I'm going to go tonight instead of waiting.
No, it's
That's
brilliant
phenomenal.
What she can do. Yeah, no, she's amazing.
That's phenomenal. I think the entire crew is going to maybe take a visit over there. Who can't use that? Yeah. So, wow. So exciting things are happening. It's too bad you don't let the grass grow under your feet. I mean, wow. You really dive in and you make things happen. And not a lot of people can say that, men or women. So my hat goes off to you. You've done a lot. I've been asking women if they ever had a female mentor along the way, and what do they think a female mentor could provide to maybe someone coming up behind them. So did you have a female mentor anywhere along the way?
My mentor was really my mom. She was amazing. Mm-hmm. She was born in 1933, so she didn't have the opportunities that she wanted to make sure that I had.
Right.
She was allowed to be a teacher or a nurse. Those are the only two things that she was allowed to do. She became a teacher. So she wanted me to go to whatever school I wanted to go to enjoy whatever career I wanted to go to. And she was my go-to person. I would talk to her 5 times a day. She would give me advice. I'll never forget my first day at the DA's office. I was doing a trial. I won it. But apparently I didn't ask for a severe enough sentence. And the judge yelled at me and called me a neophyte. And I ran out of the courtroom in tears. And I didn't know what neophyte meant. Mm-hmm. And so I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, you're not going to believe this. The Judge Grosso called me. And she's like, Carolyn, it's okay. You are a neophyte, But I mean, she was my go-to. She supported me. She challenged me. And so if you don't have a mother like that, though, you need to find a woman who will support you.
Right.
Whether it's somebody's older sister or someone in your school, or there's someone there who will always want to support you. You just have to find that person you can trust.
That's very important. Very important. I didn't have any female mentors, but my mother was a shining example of something that I would aspire to be. So
exactly.
A lot of successful people typically have a mantra or something that uses them to guide them through every situation. Do you have a mantra? Do you have anything that you've always leaned on that's gotten you through situations?
Well, the most important thing I always say, and I try to teach my daughter, is be kind. You have to have integrity, be kind, and do the right thing. But honestly, I don't think that I'm that interesting. I don't really understand why you even want to sit here and talk to me because, I've just been surviving and living my life. I've been blessed that things have happened to me, but there's not been a big plan. I didn't envision, if you told me now, 30 years ago, that I'd be doing this, I think you were crazy. Life happens. I've changed my career according to my life, and I just feel lucky. But anybody can do it, I'm really not that interesting.
Well, you are. I'm going to beg to differ because this is a really good point. A lot of women take care of everyone else first. We're nurturers, and that's what we do, and that's terrific. That's in our DNA, I believe. But a lot of women really don't shine the spotlight on themselves. They're not comfortable with it, and they're not comfortable taking praise of any kind. By the way, your hair is fabulous today. But they're not comfortable taking any kind of praise. So from your point of view, you think that you've just been plodding along just to make ends meet and to get through the next month. Mm-hmm. And while you were busy with your head down, you've created an amazing movement in so many ways. And you have touched people's lives that many people will never do. I mean, the capacity that you have lived your life in the giving back realm has been really amazing and unstoppable. So you need to stop and give yourself a pat on the back and give yourself credit because, as this California girl will say, you're freaking awesome. And you need to take credit and give yourself, a little bit of kudos for that. So you are fascinating, you are interesting, but many women, if you're listening out there, young girls, you need to, in a very humble way, say, I'm worth it, I'm worthy, I've done a lot, and give yourself some credit once in a while. I think that's the one thing that women don't do, is give themselves credit. So
Yeah, I'm not good at taking compliments at all.
well, you and half of the other women, I think that's important to say. So, but anyone listening, I don't need to tell you. Really, has she not done anything with her life? And she's not done yet. So this is amazing. So I love that.
As we talked earlier, when you help somebody, it's selfish. You feel good.
Yes.
Nothing makes me happier than to know I made a little difference in somebody's life. And if you can save someone's child, I mean, what's better than that?
So the universe is just providing you ways to just keep helping people.
To make a living and help people at the same time. And the other piece about Juhi LLC that's wonderful is Juhi is just like me in terms of wanting to give back.
Right.
So she travels to Haiti and to Puerto Rico and does acupuncture pro bono on, children in orphanages and senior centers. And, she wants to give back too. And 10% of the proceeds of all the products that we will sell will go to these facilities where she wants to provide care.
So I think that for everyone watching, we will be providing links where you can get the products, where you can donate, where you can get involved, and you can help this cause if it speaks to you. So thanks for sharing that with us. But you and Juhi are definitely aligned with your missions in life. And isn't it funny how things happen and how you came to each other? Because as a young girl with your religion and doing what she does, did you ever think that your two paths would intersect?
No. I mean, she was born in Bombay, India.
I love this. It's great.
And we're two peas in a pod now.
I love this. So all of your work with domestic violence and domestic abuse, is there only the physical abuse? What about emotional abuse? Is there such thing as emotional abuse?
Oh, absolutely. That's an excellent question. And actually, the emotional abuse is far more devastating to the victim than the physical abuse. A bruise will heal. Mm-hmm. But the emotional abuse is something that will stay, unfortunately, with the victim forever unless the person gets appropriate therapeutic support. So what the abuser tries to do is slowly and very methodically chip away the person's self-worth and confidence. Mm. You don't look pretty today. Why are you wearing that? You look fat. They'll remove you from your family and friends. They'll threaten to hurt a pet or a family member. So this emotional abuse is very devastating, very powerful, and puts the victim in a position where they'll never leave. They're terrified to.
So low self-esteem, and maybe he'll get better, or I'm not worth, no one would want me. Exactly. If I left, no one would want me.
Exactly right.
So that's a problem. So how do you navigate that? How do you help a friend who you see is going through that, male or female?
So you might want to, if you witness derogatory comments, or if you happen to see what's going on, say, I heard so-and-so say this to you. That's really not kind. You're an amazing person. Why are you allowing that? You need to speak up. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do that in, obviously, the perpetrator's around, but if you can get the person in a safe, quiet space, which isn't always easy, just let the person know you're there. Don't necessarily ask the question directly, but just say, I'm here for you. Anytime you need anything, the code word, all of those things, so that the person knows that they're not alone, because that's the goal, to isolate the person away from everybody that cares about them. So if there's someone who cares, there's someone there, the person eventually will reach out.
Right. The interesting thing about that is that you made me think of a friend, a very good friend that I have, who is very intelligent and very successful on the outside. To the world thinks she's got it all together. She's at the top of her career and everything is just rosy at home, where I happen to know that it's not rosy at home. And after years and years and years of trying to be on the sidelines, not knowing when to step in or not wanting to overstep and kind of push that sensitive button, finally she got enough courage to walk away. And it was very difficult and it was a messy process. But now that she's out of the fog, she is saying, wow, I had no idea that I was that girl. And I had no idea I could be this girl. Yeah. And now she's but it was a tough process to watch.
Domestic violence really happens in 1 in 3 relationships, and it crosses all ethnicities, socioeconomic statuses. Anybody and everybody can be affected, unfortunately.
Wow. So do you still love the law?
I do. I mean, I saw all the complexities in the criminal justice system. There's a lot, and there's a lot of reform needed. So it was quite challenging at times.
Right.
Sometimes the constitutional protections don't always allow justice. So it was challenging. And that's where I realized that, my calling is to help people, not to reform the criminal justice system, which could have been a different career.
Right. Well, I ask a lot of the women, what would you tell your 27-year-old self? So looking back, is there one piece of advice that you heard from someone else or like you would like to give yourself?
What I learned is listen more, talk less. But I learned that at a very late stage. But it's very important.
But you learned it.
I learned it.
Well, that's good. What would you, fill in the blank for me, please. What do you wish you would have done more of to date?
I wish I would have had more children, actually.
Okay.
But I got married at 41 and had my daughter at 42, so that was it. But looking at my friends who have these big families now,
Right.
I'm terrified of the thought of her going off to college and then it's just me now. So I wish I had more kids to sort of soften that blow. But that's probably the one thing. I probably would have gotten married earlier and had more children. That's probably the one thing I would do differently. But other than that, I don't think I would have done anything differently.
You do have a lot of children that you've helped, so I believe that your family is probably larger than most people's family in that respect.
And I have what I call chosen family.
Yes.
It's just my daughter and me, blood, but I have a lot of people, fortunately, who I consider family.
Well, that's a great element in your life.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to flip that on its head. What do you wish you would have spent less time on? Something that didn't matter now looking back.
Spending time with people who were not worth my time and working for people who didn't deserve me. I worked with a lot of very powerful men with big egos and no integrity, and I stayed far longer than I think I should have.
Why do you think you stayed longer than you should have?
Needing the financial support, trying to figure out another plan, just needing to work. But I did get out of those situations as quickly as I could.
Right. So you took action.
Yeah,
so
right.
You would tell someone that was maybe 10, 15, 20 years behind you that's in that situation,
Yes.
coming home complaining, what would you tell them?
Do not put up with it. It's not worth it. Men should not treat you that way. Unfortunately, especially in a city like New York, powerful men here get away with a lot of things, and they should not be allowed to. You should speak up. Integrity, as I mentioned earlier, is the most important thing to me. When I am forced to work with people who have no integrity, I just won't do it.
Right. And there's women, too, that actually aren't very nice at work, and they're very competitive or do things,
Yes.
surreptitiously.
Yes.
So
Shame on them. But
yes. Yeah.
Women need to support one another and be kind to one another, and I will only surround myself now with people like that. I avoid stressful situations. I avoid people that I don't want. I've cleansed a lot of people from my life. I focus just on positive people who think like I do.
You think you would have saved yourself a lot of pain if you would have been able to recognize the people that you needed to cleanse in the future and ejected them from your circle from the very beginning?
But I didn't know that I deserved that almost, I mean, I always had a lot of self-confidence and self-worth, but when you work for somebody and they're the brains behind the operation and you're just the director and they're the president or whatever it is, you just do what you're told, I guess. But I stopped doing that.
Right.
Sometimes at my peril, but I learned I will not put myself in that situation.
I can't imagine. I can't even envision you at this phase in your life. I can't imagine you sitting still and letting any situation you're not comfortable in, not getting up and just walking out of the room.
Yeah, I went through a lot, but my husband's illness really taught me that what's important.
I'm sure there were many. What is one of the key blessings for you and your daughter that come to mind that your husband left you with?
We enjoy every day. I take nothing for granted. When I wake up in the morning and I feel good, I'm grateful. We live in the moment. I was always living for tomorrow, for the next vacation, for whatever's happening next weekend. I don't do that anymore. I am so present, and I never knew what that felt like before. I'm loving just sitting here talking with you. Whatever I'm doing, whoever I'm with, that's why it's so important that I be with people that I enjoy, because I won't waste my time otherwise.
Right.
I enjoy every second of every day, and if I find myself getting stressed, I can bring myself back down and move on, and just don't waste time with people that don't matter. I can make those choices now for myself.
Good advice. Good advice. What do you do for fun when you've got free time? What's fun for you? Not for your daughter. What's fun for you?
Well, I love traveling, and I hadn't been able to travel for the last 5 years between my mother and my husband. So now we're making lots of plans to travel. But wherever we go, we always do something to give back. So, and a funny story is my dog walker just got a lead role in Hamilton.
What?
So I'm trying to find a new dog walker. If you can help me with that, that would be helpful. But yes, yes. So he came from California to New York to audition. He's a young 22-year-old kid.
Right.
Walking my dog for 2 years. Just landed Mulligan and Madison in the second act. So he is going to be in Puerto Rico for 3 weeks with Lin-Manuel.
Get out of here.
Who's playing Hamilton.
Wow.
And so Juhi and I and Lexi are going to go to Puerto Rico, and we're going to volunteer in the shelters and wherever people need her services. And we're going to go see Hamilton with Lin-Manuel and my friend.
That is amazing.
So this is the thing that I couldn't do ever in my life. I'm now taking advantage of these opportunities.
That is amazing. So we'll have to talk when this is over, because I'm part of an organization that actually, when the hurricane came through, we were helping them rebuild. Maybe I can connect you. If you need a connection or a way to give back, I can connect you with them.
That would be amazing, yes.
Yes, so... Oh my gosh, what a great story. So you need a new dog walker?
I need a new dog walker.
All right, so the universe will bring you a new dog walker with probably some other fabulous story, and maybe they have a business you need to help run as well.
Exactly.
I love this. This is great. Any great words of advice that you would like to give anyone that's watching this that is going through a tough time, saying, yes, it was easy for her. She has a great law degree. She can do this. What's some of the core advice that you would give someone that's really struggling, saying, I don't know where to turn next and I'm not enough?
Well, first of all, you have to have confidence in yourself. You need to be able to reach out to somebody who you can trust, who you can talk to about it, because you really can't do it by yourself. It takes a village to bring yourself up, to move on. But you can do it. I mean, yes, I've been blessed. You know, I have a good education, but I've been through hell. There's no question about it. Like what my daughter and I saw, no one should ever have to see. And if I can survive that, anybody can. Like I told you, I really thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown and that I wasn't going to survive. But I did. You just have to have faith. Things get bad. Everybody has bad things in their life. There's nobody who doesn't experience trauma, tragedy, heartbreak. It happens. It's what you make of it. And there's always a blessing that you have to look for, to be thankful for. And that was my daughter to me. You know, to have a healthy baby at 43 years old is very rare. And she's what got me through it. Find your pet, your turtle, something. You have a blessing. Find what you're grateful for and focus on that.
I love that. And I'm going to leave it there, because that is a great, great, great lesson for anyone to take with them. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thanks so much for tuning into the Mentors and Moguls podcast. I have a question for you. Have you subscribed to the podcast so you never miss an episode? If you enjoyed today's podcast, rate and review this interview and share it with a friend who could benefit from today's guest.